Hi, did you know EDEXCEL made practice papers? Well, they do, and they're a fantastic resource. They are full sets, papers 1, 2, and 3, and 80 marks on each. So, how many have they actually made? Loads. I mean, loads. There are 144. I don't think anybody would need that many. Anyway, I am making it my mission to do worked solutions for as many as I can. Obviously, the goal is all 144. I do work full time though, so I'm going to be creating them and pushing them out as quickly as I can. So watch the channel because new videos are going to land all the time. Now, to use the papers, I would recommend downloading them, sitting quietly, cracking on with it, and then coming back to do the marking. You've got all the solutions with walkthrough examples. So if anything's gone wrong and you need to see the steps and the methods, it's all going to be there for you. Now, for grade boundaries on the end screen, I've provided some percentages as guide only. No one knows what the grade boundaries will be ever. Anyone telling you are really just trying to give you a guide, and mine is no different. I have gone for the highest percentages we've seen so that we are reducing our risks, but it gives you a goal. It gives you something to head for. And I think that is really, really useful. So once you've got your score, check out the end screen, and that will also give you an idea of your grade. Now, if you're really struggling, if you're finding that you're sitting down to do the papers and they're not going very well, but you like the way that I explain and walk through the questions, then I do have some courses that are available. They are in the description below, so you can just click on that link. If you are somebody that wants to be studying and gaining the higher grades, my grade 6 course is currently free here on the channel. So do go and check that out. The course is designed to help you develop your critical thinking skills. So whilst it's all labeled up as grade 6, because we use a lot of those topics to help us, actually what you're going to really get from that is those topics, but the critical skills that you need. Okay, well, good luck with your studies. This will make a great addition to your revision. If you like what we're doing, please hit that like and subscribe button. That'll hopefully push the video out to more people and more people can benefit from it. Obviously, comments are great. So yeah, just good luck. Revising for a GCSE maths, it's going to be tough. So I wish you well. Okay, so our first question is asking us to order, starting with the smallest. So we have -5, -3, 4, 6, and 9. Now we're being asked to change 430 centimeters into meters. Now I'm going to just, rather than give you the answer, I'm going to give you something that might be useful to learn, and it will help you convert all length. So the smallest length we have is millimeters, then centimeters, meters, kilometers. And the numbers that connect these basically go up 10, 100, and 1,000. And obviously you can be changing in the opposite direction as well, same numbers. You divide if you are moving in this direction, and you times if you're moving in that direction. So learning this little thing here can be really, really helpful if you find converting units such a tricky thing to remember. So we've got centimeters that we have to change into meters. So centimeters to meters means we're going to divide by 100, which will give us 4.3. Our next one, we've got units, we've got tenths in our place value grid. So we have 3 in the tenths column, so 3 tenths. And changing 0.7 into a percentage. Again, you could think of using this if it helps. That means we've got 7 tenths, but a percentage means out of 100. So I would need to times everything by 10 to get 70 over 100, so 70%. So just a little bit of background into those, which I hope is helpful rather than just seeing the answer. Okay, so this is quite a wordy question, which can be really off-putting, but the maths in this question is pretty straightforward once you can pull it out of the question. So try not to get too bogged down by the story itself. So we're told that we've got a stick that is in 3 parts, A, B, and C. The total length is 30, which they've shown us in the diagram here. The whole of the length is 30. We can see A is 16 and B is 9. So this little bit here is all we need to work out. It would be 30, take away the 16 and the 9 together. So you'd probably add that first. That's 25, which gives you a final answer of 5 centimeters. Okay, so Jessica thinks of a number. If Jessica thinks of a number and you don't know what it is, you need to call that number X or A or N or any letter that you would like. It's a number I don't know. So we've got our X and she multiplies it by 3. So we've got 3X. She then subtracts 7 and her answer is 5. And we've got to work out that number. So we've just written an equation. We're going to hop the 7 across to the other side to leave 3x equaling 12. I want to get x on its own. I need to divide through by 3 because it's a times on that side. And x is equal to 4. So her number was 4. It's not the only way to do that question. Okay, so the total cost of 2 pens is 60p. And we've got to work out the cost of 5. So ideally, knowing what 1 pen is will be super helpful. So 1 pen is going to equal 30. We just need to half the 60. And therefore, 5 pens, we need to take the 30 and times it by 5 to give us 150. 3 5s are 15, add the 0, change that into pounds, and you've got £1.50. All right, so we've got a dual bar chart, always important, whoops, moving around, always important to check in with that key, make sure you know what is what. So white bread is in our white bar and in our shaded bar is our brown bread. We've got to write down the total number of cheese sandwiches. So here is our cheese. We can see it comes out at 6. So we would have 6 on white, 6 on brown, and in total, we would have 12. Now, there are more white bread sandwiches than brown, and we've got to work out how many more. Now, to do this, we need to find out the heights so that we have the frequency of every single sandwich. So what we would be doing is looking at the top, going across, working out what that number is, and then that tells us, so in this case, it's 11. So we've got 11 ham sandwiches. And I just mark it on the diagram so it's really clear. I can't lose that information. Once I've got all of that, I would add up my white bread. So I've got 11 plus 11 plus 6, which is 28. Then I would do the brown, which is 10 plus 3 plus 6, giving me 19. And then I just need to work out that difference, which is 9. So for part B, the answer is 9. Okay, so James has 9 cards. They've all got a shape on each one of them. He's going to take a random card, and we've got to find out which shape is most likely. So the most likely card is the one that has got the most common shape on it, which is our square. What is the probability that James takes a card that has a square on it? Now, probability, when you read that, you need to be thinking fraction. We've got 5 squares out of a total of 9. And probability will always work like that. So whatever they're talking about on the top, total on the bottom. For question 10, we've got David is going to buy a cooker, and the cooker has a price of 320. He's going to pay a deposit of 15%. So that's like a down payment. He's going to put some of the 320 down for the cooker, and we've got to work out what that 15% is. Now, on non-calculator questions, when you've got a percentage like this, they are generally expecting you to work out 10% and kind of go from there. 10% is always divide by 10. It's the only one that works like that. If you had to find 20%, you wouldn't be dividing by 20. In this case, we need to find 15%. We're not dividing by 15. We will divide by 10 though. So 320 divided by 10 is 32. So I know that 10% is equal to 32. 5%, which is half of 10, will be 16, half of the 32. Now 10 and 5 is 15%, and 32 plus 16 is 48. So our answer would be 48. Okay, when we're solving equations, we're basically just getting the x on its own. So we're going to take off the 3, which gives us 9. This is divide by 5. So we're moving it across. It will land as times by 5, which will give us 50. We've got a lot of words here. Again, this is really just trying to set up a story. So give the problem a little bit of context. So when you've got a lot of words like this, just imagine the story that they've created, because it may make answering the question a little bit easier. We've got to make a list of all the different meals she can have. Now, being systematic in your approach will really help here. So they've started us off putting soup and chicken together. So we're going to keep going with soup to start off with. So we've got soup that could go with fish, and then we've got soup that could go with the omelette. Now I'm going to go to a melon starter, and then it's just melon and chicken, melon and fish, melon and omelette. So doing it in a very kind of logical approach, so you're not jumping around, will help you not miss any off, hopefully. Now, a meal is chosen at random. What is the probability? There's that probability again. We know it's going to be a fraction, that the meal will be melon and chicken. Well, if we look up here at our combinations, melon and chicken comes up once, and we've got 6 combinations. So it would be 1 out of 6. Now, the cafe adds fruit juice as another starter, and Charlie says there will be 1 more meal to choose from. Show Charlie is wrong. So they're telling us he's wrong. We've got to explain why. If fruit juice was added, we would have fruit with our chicken, fruit with our fish, and fruit with our omelette, which is 3 more. And that would be a good enough explanation. You showed it. You showed that there are more combinations. You could do it with more of a sentence, like there would be 9 more meals. As long as it's an accurate communication of what they're looking for, you'll be fine. Okay, next question. We're being told that the perimeter of the rectangle is the same as the perimeter of the square, and we have to work out the length of one side. So we've got to work out an edge of the square. The perimeter is the same, and we've got some numbers actually on the rectangle. If I fill in all the rest, I can see all the numbers involved in the problem. Perimeter is to add around the edge. So we've got 8 plus 2 plus 8 plus 2, which would give us 20. So I now know that the perimeter of my square must be 20. I've got 4 edges. They're all equal. So I can just share the 20 between the 4 edges. And our answer is 5. Okay, so we're being asked to write 8:45 p.m. as a 24-hour clock time. Now, p.m. is in the evening. All we're going to do is add 12, and that will give us 20:45. So Sita did a puzzle in 3 minutes, 45 seconds. Now did the same puzzle, took a lot longer, 7 minutes, 28. And Zita believes that she did the puzzle in less than half the time. So we need to see if that's correct. To do that, we're going to need to half our 7 minutes, 28 seconds. Okay. So if we half our 7 minutes, we'll have 3 minutes and 30 seconds. If we half our 28 seconds, we'll have 14 seconds, which gives us a total time of 3 minutes, 44 seconds. So it's very close, isn't it? To be quicker, to be more than half, or to be exactly half, you'd need to be 3:44. To be more than half, you'd need to be less than 3:44. She's actually 3:45, so she hasn't quite done that. So the answer is no. Okay, question 15. We've got a fractions question. Now, there's obviously more than one way. There's lots of methods out there. So you may be using your smashed window. You might be using butterfly. Because this particular question, if I look at the denominators, I can get these denominators the same really just by multiplying this one through by 2. That's all I'm going to do in this example. So if I take my 3/4, times it by 2, I will get the equivalent of 6/8. Now, 6/8 plus 1/8, my denominators are the same, gives me 7/8. And that's my final answer. If you did it via a different method, you may have got a bigger fraction. It does say simplest form. Just make sure you have cancelled that down to get full marks. Okay, so we're being asked to write these numbers in order of size, starting with the smallest. And what we really need to do is have them all in the sort of same representation. Having them as a fraction and as a decimal and as a percentage, it does make it really difficult to compare. Now, generally going into decimals is easier. Plus, we've already got 2 that are decimals. 2/3 is 0.666, and on is recurring. And that knowledge is kind of essential in helping you answer this question. 65%, 65 out of 100, that means we divide by 100, which would give us 0.65. We can now see and compare these. 0.6 is the smallest, followed by 0.606, then it's 65%, and then it's your 2/3. Now, if you are someone that doesn't have that information just stored as knowledge, and a lot of people don't, how are you going to change that into its decimal? So what we are looking at with a fraction is a divide. That says 2 divided by 3. If I put that into my bus stop or bus shelter, whatever you call it, I would have this. How many 3s do I get into 2? None. Well, that's good. We're expecting that. So I know I've put my numbers the right way round. So that 2 gets carried over, but there's nothing to carry it onto. So I add a 0 and put up my decimal. Now, how many 3s can I get into 20? I can get 6 with 2 left over. 6 with 2 left over. 6. And you can see that it's going to recur. That really is the only foolproof way of being able to change a fraction into a decimal. Okay, so 1 kilogram of cheese costs £5.60. We need to work out the cost, basically, of 200 grams. The grams and the kilograms are different units, and we need to spot that. And we need to get them into the same units. Now, 1 kilogram is equal to 1,000 grams. By doing that, we now know that 1,000 grams is going to cost £5.60. We want to know the cost of 200 grams. So I've tried to keep the grams in their own column, and I've got another column for the pounds. And if you have watched a lot of my videos or some of my how-to videos, you'll know all about my boxes and labels. So this is part of that method and how we structure the information from the question. Now, these two are connected. I could get from 200 to 1,000 by timesing by 5, or the opposite, get from 1,000 to 200 by dividing by 5. Now, I want to do the opposite. I want to divide by 5 because I want to go in this direction in order to fill in this missing blank. So we have to do £5.60 divided by 5, which means we have got another bus shelter job. So 5s into 5 go 1, bring up your decimal point. 5s into 6 go 1, remainder 1. 5s into 10 go 2. So our answer is £1.12. Okay, Mr. Brown and his 2 children are going to London. We've got the cost of their tickets, and we're also being given this information in the box, which is giving us some money off. So we need to work out what a third of 24 is. We need to know how much that is so that we can take it off the ticket price. So we divide by the bottom times by the top. 24 divided by 3 is 8. And times in by 1 isn't going to change that. So he's going to get £8 off. And I must remember that because a lot of students will think that they've just worked out what he's going to pay. So 24, take off the 8 is 16. So that's his adult ticket. Now, 60% means we're going to find our 10% first. We did this earlier. So we're going to divide by 10, which is this. Now, I could times this all up by 6 to get to 60%. I'm actually going to choose to work out 50% because that's going to be super easy. All I've actually got to do there is half it, which will give me 6. And then together, I've got that 60%. So together, I've got my £7.20. But remember, that's what I'm going to be taking off the price. So I need to do £12, take away £7.20. That is equal to £4.80. Now, you can either add on. So I was £7.20 in my head. I needed 80p to get to £8 and then another 4 to get to 12. You could put it in columns, of course. Now I'm going to work out the total cost. It's 1 adult and 2 children. I could show that just to make it feel a little bit more comfortable. So I've got 0, 8 and 8 is 16. You're going to carry that 1. That's going to give you 15. And that is your total cost. Okay, we've got 4.52 times 36 to work out. Now, again, there are various methods. First thing to know, however, is that we're going to ignore the decimal to start off with, and we are just going to work out 452 times 36. Now, a lot of foundation students, oops, that's right. Thought I'd written it down wrong then for a second, will automatically default to this method, but it's a method that they're not as confident performing or doing, and it often goes wrong. So for this particular question, I'm going to use the Chinese method because my students that move across to this end up doing much, much better with it. And if you need to see this and learn this, if it's something you've never seen before, then I have a how-to video on it. It's absolutely brilliant method. So we're going to put our I have gone wrong now. We're going to put our 4, 5, 2 and our 3, 6 down. And we're going to multiply in. So 2 times 3 is 6. We've got 15. We've got 12. 12 again. 30 and 24. Now you'll notice I've not used this row. I've not used this because I don't have a digit here. So technically I could have drawn a 3 by 2 and that would have been enough. I generally just draw a 3 by 3 as an automatic thing, and then I don't think about the grid particularly. We add through these diagonals. So I'm highlighting so that we can see what's happening. So in my blue, and again, I'm going backwards. In my blue, I have 2. In my white, I have 7. In the next blue, I'm going to go over 10. I've got 4 plus 5, which is 9, 10, 11, 12. I put down the 2 and I carry the 1. And I generally carry it in and pop it somewhere so I don't miss it. That's going to give me 6, and that's going to give me 1. So the digits are 16272. That's the answer to 452 times 36. However, I do have that decimal, so I need to put that back in. If I look at the 452, I would need to come in 2 places to make it look like the number in the original question. So I'm going to do those 2 places, and I end up with my decimal point there. So my final answer is 162.72. Okay, so on the grid, and I haven't put the full grid up yet because we're just going to do a little bit of maths first, but on the grid, we're going to draw the graph of y equals 3x plus 2 for the values of x from -2 to 2. What we want to do is create a table for our maths, and it will just hopefully organize everything really nicely. So we've got x and y, and we've got our x and our y here in our rule, and we're being told that the x values are -2 to 2. So that's what I'm going to fill in: -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. Now, to find my y values, my y will equal this. So this is 3 times x. They are squashed. So it's 3 times x plus 2. I'm just showing that times sign at this stage so that I can see clearly the maths. Now I've got all these x values to work out. I am not starting here. Why would I want to start at the hardest place? I'm actually going to start here where it's a positive number. So my x is going to change to the 2 that I've got in my table. 3 times 2 plus 2 is 8. So my y is 8 when x is 2. And then I'm just going to repeat that. 3 times, the next number in the table is 1 plus 2. That will give me 5. 3 times 0 plus 2 will give me 2. Now I can keep going with calculations, or now I've got 3 numbers, I can look to see if there's a pattern. To get from 8 to 5, I would take 3. To get from 5 to 2, I would take 3. So I'm not going to substitute a negative number into that maths. I am just going to take away 3 from 2, and that will give me -1. And then I'm going to take away 3 from my -1 to give me -4. Now, what I've actually created are the coordinates that I need to plot on my graph. First thing I'm going to need to do is set up the actual graph. So I need to put my axes on. Okay, so I've chosen to just spread this out a little bit by going across 2 squares. I'm only going up 1 on the y-axis. I've also been a bit lazy and only labeled every other one. It doesn't really matter if you have gone 1, 2, 3, etc. It just means that your shape, when you see your answer compared to mine, might be slightly different in the way it looks, that's all. Going back to our table holds the coordinates. So here I have got the coordinate 2, 8. I can now plot 2, 8 because I have created my graph to plot it onto. So we've got 1, 5, 0, 2, -1, -1, and -2, -4, which is here. Now, I see so many students stop here and then they lose a mark. We have to actually draw the line that goes through the crosses. And there we have it. We have drawn the graph y equals 3x plus 2. Quite a lot of work there with us having to draw the coordinate grid ourselves. I have to say that most exam questions have that all set up and ready for you. Okay, another crossover, both seen on foundation and higher. We're being asked to translate shape P by the vector 5, -2. Now, a translation slides and the vector gives the direction that you need to go in. So a +5 means we will be going 5 forward, and that negative means we're going to be going down 2. So I have chosen this corner to count from, which takes me here. And now I'm going to make sure that I grow as I draw the shape. I'm going to grow it from that corner. And that's our translation. Okay, the next part of this is to describe the single transformation. And we can see straight away that this isn't going to be a translation. It hasn't slid into place. So it's either going to be a reflection or a rotation. And we can use our tracing paper to help us with this. Now, my software is not fantastic, but I can certainly help you get an idea of how you would do this. So you would take the tracing paper, you would trace your shape, and take the time to be fairly accurate here. And then you would use your pencil to stab at the origin, and you hold your pencil at that point, and then you can twist the tracing paper with it pinned to the page. As you twist it, you are looking to see if it will land exactly on top. Now, when you twist that, it doesn't quite land on top, but it does take the shape after you've done half a turn. So it's definitely a rotation. It's just not at that exact point. So then you would move out to these other points that go around the origin. And basically, you will just be testing one at a time until you find the one that positions it exactly on top. And that would be 0, 1. So we will write down that it's a rotation, 180 degrees in the point 0, 1. Now, if we had done that rotation and it hadn't looked already in that same position, just slightly off, if it was completely different, then you know to rule the rotation out and to then start looking for that mirror line and work out what the reflection would have been. But in this case, as we can see, it's a rotation. Okay, another crossover question. Now, it would be incredibly tempting to expand this, but we're being asked to simplify it, which means we need to create a tidier, sort of smaller version of this algebra. And to do that, we really want to see that the x plus 2 that's being multiplied by itself is expanded to show that, but don't take it any further. Don't crab's claw it, because then we can take 1 from the top to cancel the bottom and simplify it to x plus 2. Here we're going to use our indice rules. Going to do the number work first. So 2 times 3 is 6. Then we've got a squared times a cubed. We add the powers for a multiplication question. And then we've got b times b, which is b squared. Okay, next question is another crossover, so on both foundation and higher. In this question, we've been given some information about a concrete mix. So we've got a ratio of cement, sand, and gravel, and together that will create our concrete. So let's first of all code out this line. I would always code out immediately. So we've got cement, sand, gravel, 1 to 3 to 5. Now that, when it's mixed together, creates concrete. So in the ratio, we would have 9. We added those and just mixed up our concrete in parts 1, 3 to 5, we would have 9. Now he needs to make 180. So we want a total of 180. To get from 9 to 180, we're going to times by 20. So we do that on the opposite side. So that's what he needs. That's what he needs if he's going to create 180 kilograms of concrete mix. What have we got? We've got enough of sand and gravel, but we do not have enough cement. So will he be able to make that mix? No. Okay, our next question is a crossover question seen on both foundation and higher. It's an error interval, which has been set up for us. So we just need to find the missing values. I like to do this thinking about a number line. So we've been given 72 that's been rounded to the nearest centimetre. So the next centimetre would have been 73, the one before 71, and we want those values slap bang in the middle. So 71.5 and 72.5. Right, question 25. We've been given a graph that helps us change between cost and miles. We've got to work out how much the fixed charge is. Now, the fixed charge is right here. If you see, this is 0. We've not actually traveled anywhere yet. We're at 0 miles, yet we're actually having to pay £10. And that's telling me it's a fixed charge. Now, Ed uses a van to deliver parcels. For each parcel Ed delivers, it's £1.50 a mile. So we know that he's going to charge £1.50 for 1 mile. If we just times the whole thing by 10, that would be £15 for 10 miles. And I'm just going to pop some labels here so I don't get confused. I could double that. Just want to get a feel for what he is actually charging. I could also plot this onto my graph. So at 20, it would be 30. And as you can see, as soon as I put that on, I can see that's exactly the same as our other delivery person. If I plot on my 10 miles, which is £15, I can see that that is cheaper. I could draw the actual line in, and then it helps me get a clearer picture. I can see that Ed is cheaper until they hit that £20 mark, and then it would be our other delivery guy, can't see his name anymore, he would then take over and be cheaper. So that's kind of the sentence that I need to write down. Okay, the wording can vary, obviously, as long as you're clear that you have stated what is happening there. Okay, our next question, again, a crossover question, is asking us to write down the class interval containing the median, and then we're going to be drawing a frequency polygon. Now, the median we know means middle. To get to the middle, we divide by 2. We've been told there's a total of 60 students, so 60 divided by 2 is equal to 30. So we need to see where 30 is. Now, the first, and I hope I'm going to be able to show this nice and clearly, the first 8 students are here, and they've got 0 to 4 CDs. So my first 8 are here. If I add on the 11 students that have 5 to 9, I will be at a total of 19 students as I stretch my way along the frequency. If I go along the frequency again, I can see I'm going to add in another 9, which is going to take me to 28. But remember, I'm trying to get to 30. So at the moment, I've got myself to a total of 28 students that have between 0 and 14 CDs. My 30 is definitely going to lie in here because I only need a couple more students and there's 14 in this group. So my answer is 15 to 19. Now, when we are drawing a frequency polygon, we are basically drawing a straight line graph. So it's just a fancy name for a straight line graph. We do need to know the coordinates. The coordinates are always the midpoint. So the midpoint of the class width in the table plotted with the frequency. So our first one would be 2, 8. Our next one would be 7, 11, and so on. So you will plot those and then draw the graph. Now, don't forget to draw your lines and do remember to make them straight. I've done one here. It's a little bit wibbly and it really stands out. It's not neat. It's not tidy. Try and use your ruler wherever possible on these types of questions. Okay, another crossover. So we have got lots of information, actually. It's quite wordy. We've got a diagram. We're being told that the depth of the orange juice in the carton is 8 centimetres. So technically, whilst it's 20 centimetres tall, we're only looking at orange juice that's filled up to 8 centimetres. So this kind of capacity here. So we want to find the volume at this point. So the base is 6 times 10, times that through by the height of 8, and you would end up with 480. So we know that there are 480 cubic centimeters in the carton. Now, when we flip it, we will, and this takes a little bit of visualizing, we will have 6 along the bottom and 20, and we will be 10 high. And I could put a little bit more into my diagram so that I can kind of see the carton a little bit. I find drawing and modeling a really important part of my problem solving. I would encourage everybody to do it. Now I'm going to do my 20 times 6, which is 120. I know that my total capacity is 480, which I'm going to divide through by the 120. Cancel that. 12 into 48 equals 4. So the depth in my new carton is going to be 4 centimeters. And that is my final answer. Now, you could have spotted that the 6 and the 10 had changed to the 6 and the 20. So it's a half in its difference. But that's a walkthrough of actually thinking about each step as a process. So I hope that has been helpful. Okay, we've got a crossover question. So this question was both on the foundation and higher paper. It's very wordy. So the first thing we're going to do is transfer as much information as we can onto the diagram that they've already started for us so that we've got everything we need to see in the kind of right places. So we know that Raksha is leaving Fullbeck at 10. So I'm going to pop that time on. She drives at an average speed of 40 miles per hour. She wants to get to Hornton at 10:35. And our problem is to work out the speed. That's what I'm trying to achieve. So from the information I can see, I've got my distance and speed here, which means I would be able to find my time. Let's not forget our really useful triangle. I've got distance and speed. So I'm going to be doing 10 divided by 40. If I cancel that down, I can see that's a quarter. And a quarter of an hour is 15 minutes. So this section of the journey has just taken 15 minutes, which means my time is now 10:15. So let's get that marked on. What that does is it helps me get an extra piece of information here. I need to know the time if I'm going to work out the speed. I know it's 10:15 and she wants to be there by 10:35. So we've got 20 minutes. Speed is distance, which is 18 over time. Now, if I put 20 in, that's fine, but I do need to remember that this is in minutes. And actually, I want to be in miles per hour. So I'm going to times this through by 3 to give me 54 over 60. And now what I've got is 54 miles per hour, because obviously this is 54 out of 60 minutes, or it's 54 out of an hour. Okay, our last question you'll be pleased to hear. All right, write down the value of 5 to the power of 0. That is 1. This really is a fact that you want to just get into your head. It's an easy mark if you can just remember the fact. It's a bit like angles in a straight line add up to 180. If you know that, you can problem solve with it. So try and get that. Anything to that 0 is going to equal 1. This one is a little bit more complicated. It's very sort of high-end indice question. We're going to ignore this negative just for a moment. We've got 2 to the power of 1 if we ignore it. 2 to the power of 1 is actually 2. Now, the negative creates something called a reciprocal. It flips the number. But if we look at our number, it doesn't look like it's flippable, if that makes sense. So what we're going to do is we're going to put it over 1 because that will create a flippable number, but it doesn't change its value. The value is still 2. And then we literally just do that flip. And our answer is a half.